So this is a continuation of boundaries, and I wanted to talk to you. Basically, I introduced it, but I want to start going through they described the beginning parts. They just sort of describe about boundaries, sort of get an idea what boundaries are. I explained a little bit why we need them, but let me go through some of the ones that go through in the book. Down below, I don't have the book, but down below will be a link for the latest and greatest boundaries book. So if you go down below, I have a link. You can get a hold of the latest and greatest boundaries book. Anytime I do YouTube, I'll try to put a link down for a book that I like, that I'm teaching out of. This one I'm teaching out of, it's an older version, but I'm sure it's the same thing. The basic boundaries that they talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about two different types of boundaries that will give you some sort of idea whether you're crashing into something. You'll recognize them after we talk about them, and if you see them being broken, you know there might be a problem. And a lot of times, if you look at a relationship wreck, you'll find that the boundaries were broken. And hopefully, when you get into other relationships, like in recovery, there's a penchant for getting into relationships, usually too soon and of the worst kind. And if you listen to this and you remember this stuff, I think you're going to notice that the alarms are going to start to go out, and those are safety alarms for you. So, boundaries. We are responsible to others and for ourselves. That's a thing that they have in the boundaries book. We're responsible to others. Now and we're responsible for ourselves. The boundary is me, us. We inhabit a special place that is about our lives. And, we have to sort of define, me and other people. And so what it's saying is I'm responsible to others. Now what does that mean? Now Christians will say that means, I am, everybody's keeper. It doesn't exactly mean that. And biblically, I don't think it means that. It means if somebody else can't help themselves, according to the Lord, I'm responsible to help them with what they can't do themselves. Now, the problem with that is some people are professional victims. That's how they live their lives. That's how they earn their keep, as being professional victims. The Bible talks about that. They said, they fed the widows, because the widows back then didn't have much. If you didn't have a husband, or you didn't have a man or a son or something like that, you were in a world of hurt. You had no resources. So basically, the church agreed to take care of the widows, but they came to a point where they had to say, hey, if you're really a widow, you have certain responsibilities as a widow. Don't go mouthing off and being lazy. They also used to say, if a person, if they're in the fellowship and they spend themselves professionally in need, they finally had to say, if they don't work, they don't eat. Well, that's not the boundary that today we'd say, oh, well, they're hungry, we feed them. Well, we'll feed them if they really if they're helpless and they need to be fed. So we're responsible others to meet the needs that they cannot carry themselves. But if they have the capacity to carry themselves, then they're responsible to carry themselves. The other part is we're responsible to others that can't take care of themselves. But we're responsible to ourselves to take care of our own stuff. In other words, I can't claim, I'm a victim, take care of me. We have to say, we have to own our own feelings. I feel bad. Well, good. You have to take responsibility for feeling bad. If you're in recovery, you can't say, I feel wicked bad, save me. You say, you go to people, they say, go to a meeting, don't drink, go to a meeting, ask for help. Talk to people, stuff like that. But you don't go to somebody and say, fix me, make me better, don't make me feel, I feel bad, your job is to make me feel better. We are responsible for for ourselves. In other words, victim thing is not part of boundaries. My job as a person is not to rescue victims. It's to help people that really need help, really need help. That they are helpless. They don't have any resources that they can apply to it. Them I'm responsible to help as best I can. But I am responsible for myself, for my stuff, my feelings. Being a victim doesn't count. There's professional victims in recovery, and there's professional victims in church. And they lay a trip on everybody else. It says, if you're a good Christian, you're going to take care of me. That's not necessarily true. As a good Christian, we're responsible for our own feelings, to deal with our own stuff with the Lord and with each other, and we're responsible to take care of people who are helpless, that need our help. We're not responsible for professional victims, And a lot of people make a living being a professional victim, and they live off Christians because they lay a trip and say, well, if you're a good Christian, you're going to take care of me. If you're a good Christian, you're going to put up with unbelievable rubbish from me if you're a good Christian. That's not good boundaries. We're responsible to others to help them with stuff they can't do, and responsible for ourselves and our emotions. We're not responsible to rescue everybody. Now, another thing, if I can get the time, is there's a boundary that says keep the bad out and let the good in. So in other words, we're responsible for what comes in and out of our lives. We have the right to hold the bad away. In other words, we have the right as people, as believers, to say no. In other words, if somebody's coming in there and hurting us, whether they're physically abusing us, sexually abusing us, emotionally abusing us, or whatever, we have the right to say no. No. I have the right to my own space, and you don't have the right to come in there and physically harm me, or verbally abuse me, or insult me, or dominate me, or run my life completely. No. I have the right to say no. I'm owner of myself, and the Lord will back you up. We don't have the responsibility to allow somebody to abuse us. We have the right to keep the bad out and say no. And for ourselves, it's okay for us to open the gate of our lives and let good stuff in. And we have the right to decide what to say no to and what to let in. It could be that there's a you find a relationship that's working for you. You've been in terrible relationships, brutal relationships, and you finally had to say no. Go away. I can't deal with this. And you have sponsors, you have people, you have friends, you have good Christian people that are there that have your best interest in hearts, and you go to them and say, no, and they work with you and said, you have a right to say, no, I won't do that. I don't know what that thing is. I'm going to have trouble with my green screen. I got some thing on my green screen. We'll work it out. It goes away. Oh, it's a reflection off a car outside. Whoops. So if you see something up there when I was talking, that's a reflection off of a car, the sun, and the green screen. So you have a right to say no, and if you go talk to people, they'll talk to you. I've had that happen. I've talked to people and they said, Chuck, you got to get out of that. You got, that's terrible. That's awful. And I finally took advice and I got out and took my kids out. It was. I had the right to shut the door on bad stuff. Well, the same thing. Maybe some good stuff comes into your life, and because you've been hurt, you say, no, I can't do that. Well, go to people and ask them. You have the right to let good stuff in. Maybe after a long time, there's a good relationship that comes into your life. Somebody that cares for you, that is not going to wreck your boundary, that's not going to, do domineering things or hurt things or sick things or anything like that. They're just in it for a good relationship. And if your friends say, hey, I think this is good for you, then you have to have courage and open the gate to people. Open the gate to be honest to people. because you've been hurt, you've been bruised, you've been beaten and stuff like that. Well, you have the right to let the gate open, to let good people in, good stuff in, you know. But you have to be sensitive. You have to have friends. You have to have people that are in your, for your best interest. You can talk to them and say, "Hey, I don't know, but this looks like it's a good thing. What do you think?" And they'll say, I think this is a good thing for you. Let this relationship into your life. Open the gate to it and let it in. And then work the boundaries thing. Relationships are complicated. There's going to be other stuff, and we'll talk about other things. But in this particular lesson, it's, boundaries are being responsible to others and for ourselves, and keeping the bad in and the good out. That's what we're talking about. If there's any questions about this, make comments below. I'll answer. And, that's the way this is going to roll here.